What's up, guys? This is Tony with Salt Strong, and this video is going to be a great example of why fish might be breaking you off. Even if they're small fish, they don't have to be big fish. You may find yourself getting broken off, every other trip. And what it really comes down to is your leader and whether or not you are retying your leader after every trip. That's something I do religiously. Before every trip, I retie all my leaders from, the main line to the hook. You can reuse the same leader, just make sure you retie those knots, and if anything, just replace the entire leader, because the longer your gear sits without using it, let's say you went on a trip, you fish for quite some time, you may have caught a lot of fish, and then you go store your gear, then you go out 3 weeks later and that leader's just been sitting there, your knots have weakened because of the fish you fought. When you are fighting fish, and even when you're retrieving your lure, there's going to be abrasion from the eye of your hook to your leader line where it attaches to the eye of the hook. And that knot can definitely weaken if you're using a knot that is snug, or if you're using a loop knot, the friction of that hook sliding around on that loop is going to weaken that line over time. And then when it comes down to your line to leader knot, if you start casting that thing through the guides, over time it's going to weaken, and also as you're fighting fish, or if you get a snag and you're pulling on that knot a lot, it's going to weaken that knot over time. So you really have to be mindful of that. So the footage that you're about to see is going to be a great example of this happening to me. This was a trip where I didn't retie my leader. This was that one trip where I didn't retie my leader and I had the knot fail when I went to set the hook. The knot failed at my hook. So let's go ahead and take a look at that footage.
Oh, I just got broken off on the gulp jerk shad. Alright, got a new hook tied on. Putting another gulp jerk shad on here. So my line broke there when I went to set the hook. And I want to blame it on not retying before I went on this trip. I usually retie everything before I go on any trip, but today for some reason didn't retie, and guess what happens?
So if you're curious about the gear that I'm using, most of this gear that I'm using you can find on our shop page at fishstrong.com. The rod is our 7'6" slot machine rod. It's a medium power fast action rod and a 2500 Shimano Stratic FL. I have it spooled up with 10-pound Power Pro braid, and I'm using 20-pound Berkley Vanish fluorocarbon leader. The hook and lure, I'm using a 3/0 1/8 ounce Haas Helix hook, and the lure is a 5-inch camo colored gulp jerk shad. And now, of course, I had to get redemption on that fish that I lost, so I was able to catch a redfish shortly after retying.
Ooh, there's a whole school of them right there. Whole school of fish right there. Look at them.
So really quick, if you are interested in seeing exactly where I'm catching these fish, why I'm fishing these areas, and the exact tactics that I put into play, and also the planning that goes along with it to get on these fish, you can find that in our Insider Club, where we show you all these details of the trip to help you better plan your next trip and also to help you catch more fish on your next trip. So definitely be sure to check that out at saltstrong.com. But let's go ahead and get back to the footage.
Whoa, easy, buddy. Alright, gulp jerk shad finally. Got one there.
Now, one last thing I highly recommend doing when you're out there on the water, if you do happen to get snagged quite a few times, or you are on a bunch of fish and you are catching fish over and over again throughout the day, it is very wise to retie your hook or your lure. That way, you don't possibly miss out on that next fish that might be the biggest fish of the day. Because again, over time, as you're fighting those fish, or if you get a snag, it's going to, cause abrasion on the knot, and also your line. So definitely be sure to retie throughout the day if you're having a pretty productive day and or you're getting snagged quite often. So hopefully these tips can help you avoid losing fish while you're out there on the water. And again, if you're interested in checking out our Salt Strong Insider Club, where you can see exactly where we're fishing, why we're fishing there, and the plan that goes into play to help us catch more fish in the areas that we're fishing, definitely check out our Salt Strong Insider Club at saltstrong.com/pricing to see if you're a fit. So you can check out that link or click the link right down below. So that will wrap up this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them down below.